وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. So we'll try to wrap this up about 20:15 inshallah. So we're just going to talk about certain themes of the significance of Arafah, the day of Arafah, and the significance of Eid, and the significance of the Hajj. Joseph Campbell speaks about, I use this theme a lot because I think this is really important in our day and age. He talks about that we're living in a constant shift of separation, initiation and return. Okay? And separation, what are we separating from? We're separating from different lives that we live. And we're separating from what we identify ourselves to be. And so a classic example of that, if you think your first day at school, you have a perception of who you are, of what life is like, and you're living in an environment of comfort where you feel secure and you know what the rules and how they work, and then you're taken by your mother, who's your source of comfort, and she takes you to school and leaves you. Okay? For some people, they rejoice. Other people, it's a source of trauma. Okay? They look back, why has mum done this to me? Where are you going, mum? And you feel that sense of death. It's a sense of death, of that your world is crumbling around you. And so that's a separation. With separation always comes a sense of death. It's like an internal death of the way you see the world and the way you see yourself. And how we identify ourselves is always limited. So, for example, if I were to tell you to close your eyes and imagine you can see yourself. Okay, so Shiraz or Abdul Razak, he's got an image of who he is. Yeah. But the fact that you're looking at it means that it can't be you. Does that make sense? If you're looking in the mirror, that's not you. Okay, even the mirror, the reflection, it twists it, doesn't it? So the left to the right and the right to the left. Like when you take a picture, it's always the other way round. Yep, that's two sides. It's never truly you, and it's always a limited perception of you because you're objectifying yourself. Does that make sense? And when you objectify yourself, you see yourself as an object outside of you. It can't be you, truly. And it's always going to be limited. You're far more vaster than that in reality. The way you perceive yourself is so much more vaster. And as we move from death, separation, to our initiation into a new realm of perception of who we are and what the world is, there's a death to the old and there's an expansion. There's generally an expansion and a new awareness of who you are and what the world is about. Okay? But that's always accompanied, that separation to initiation, with a death. Okay? And then the return is you come back. So imagine the school day. You leave your home. You're traumatized. Your mum's left you. How could she do that to me? That nasty woman, yeah, who said she was always going to be there for me. And then when you go back, your mum comes to collect you from school at the end of that first day. You look at reality completely differently. Yeah, the way you looked at your environment at home, the way you looked at your mother, the way you looked at the life is completely changed. That's the return. You go back to the same place that you were, but you don't look at it the same. You look at it through a different set of lenses. Does that make sense? And this is, and you're thinking, why are you talking about this for Eid? Yeah, because if you think about it, if you can imagine the year as a circle, has everyone got that? A year as a circle, and divide it into 4. And each 4, how many months will there be? 3. Yeah, like if you can imagine when we used to kids, Trivial Pursuit. Do you remember Trivial Pursuit? I don't know if you did that. Yeah, Pakistanis, Asians, maybe I'm speaking to the wrong audience, I don't know. We had Trivial Pursuit. And you put the little pies in there, didn't you? Yeah, okay, anyway. Yeah, okay. So, and you've got, what's the first month? Not English months. Yeah. What's the first one? Muharram. So it's, how many months are we dealing with? 12. Okay. So we've got Muharram. Go on. Here's Yusuf Islam's song starts ringing in our ears now. Yeah. Yeah, so Muharram, Safar, Rabiul Awwal. That's your first section. You got that in your head?
Yeah.
That's spring. That's infancy. Because what spring signify? New birth, isn't it? So you're moving into a separation from death, from non-being into being. You come out of the womb of your mother. That's birth, and that's your infancy. Okay. Then we go to the next stage. What's the next three? Rabi' al-Thani, Jamad al-Ula, Jamad al-Ukhra. That's summer. That's it. So the first spring and infancy. Second one, summer, youth. You know when you're really hot and you got the energy and you feel strong and resilient. Okay, you can take on the world. Yeah. Little do you know, you poor little young man, what's coming for you. Then we move into next. What's the next one? Rajab, Sha'ban, Ramadan. Why do you think the Prophet ﷺ, when he saw the moon of Rajab, he would make the dua? What? Allahumma barik lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban wa ballighna. Oh Allah, put blessing in Rajab and Sha'ban and let us live to see. Why? Because now this is the point where you move from youth to adulthood, and it's the halfway mark. So instead of you moving forward, you're looking forward to vitality, youth, and strength. Now you become more aware of your mortality. Does that make sense? Because you've hit the 40 mark. Right? Let's say you live 80 years, you hit 40 middle, and now you see yourself returning back to non-being. Okay. And because of that, the Prophet ﷺ, when he's saying that, seeing the moon, and the moon, the connection to the moon is really important, because the moon is a symbol of separation from the month before, when there's blackness, meaning the unknown, then a source of light, then clarity. So with the waxing and the waning of the moon, it's like a new birth, and then clarity in the prime of your youth, the full moon, and then again back. So there's this constant reminder of this. And the Prophet ﷺ being conscious of his mortality now, oh Allah, put blessing in Rajab and Sha'ban and enable us to live Ramadan. Because Ramadan, now, Rajab, why is Rajab significant? Rajab was one of the, what? Or is one of the? Sacred months. And the Arabs, even before Islam, they used to perform what in Rajab? Does anyone know? Go on. Umrah. Yeah, that was like a, they could perform Umrah at any time of the year. But they would specifically see that as a blessed time, Rajab. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, people, they occupy themselves in worship in Rajab and Ramadan, in Rajab and Ramadan, and they forget all about what? Sha'ban. And he says, Sha'ban's my month, okay, to signify that, to encourage the people, don't neglect Sha'ban. So Rajab is now you're going to perform Umrah and connect to God because you realise you're going back to God. Does that make sense? Then we go into a Sha'ban preparation. Ramadan is going to shift into the last quarter now. Ramadan's the last part of the third quarter, which is your adulthood, and now you're becoming aware of your old age. And so Rajab is like a detoxification, and I call it it's the month of the Quran. So it's the month of Islam, or the month of the Muslims, or the month of the followers of the Prophet ﷺ. And then we're going to move in after that detox, because we're just getting rid of the world. Ramadan's about getting rid of the world, isn't it? And preoccupying yourself with the Quran and Allah and so forth, and really just giving it some, because now you're going into your last quarter, which is what? Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah and Dhul Hijjah. And these are considered the months of Hajj, because it's permissible to go into a state of ihram in Shawwal. Because you think in the old days people would actually start travelling and they might go into a state of ihram. It's permissible. You can't go into a state of ihram in Ramadan. And ihram is a symbol of I'm giving up everything and completely focusing on God now, Allah. Yeah. So and that's moving you to the last month of the last quarter, which is Dhul Hijjah. So now you're separating from your world of familiarity, and you're initiating to the holy house. Yep. And then you go back, and you're going back to non-being, reality, and a rebirth. So we're constantly. Why do you think this isn't coincidence? Why do you think even non-Muslims, when the new year comes, what do? They make a New Year's. Why is that? Because they subconsciously know that it's as if they've got a new opportunity. It's as if they're saying goodbye to the world before, and there's a new world in front of me, an opportunity. But because they don't why do we fail in our New Year's resolutions? Because we haven't really given up on the identity before us. We're still hanging on to, and what is your identity? It's who you identify yourself with. That's not, when you start saying, I can't do that, that's not me, okay? But whenever you're moving from a separation from one identity, from one realm to another, you have to say goodbye to the world before. And we're constantly shifting through those. How you saw yourself before school is how you see yourself differently when you go into school. When you go into puberty, you move these shifts from where the hormones are changing and so forth. You're looking at the world in a different. What you want, when your mum said, what do you want? You can have anything. And you say, ice cream. Yeah, it's 3-year-old. Then when you're an 8-year-old, iPad. Okay, so you've shifted. There's a shift. Yeah, that's symbolic in the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam when he says, he moves to the star, doesn't he? And then he moves to the moon. And then he moves to the... because these are higher grades of, like, higher expansions of consciousness. Well, the moon's greater than the star, and the sun's greater than the moon. This is how we work, expanding consciousness until we finally just arrive at Allah, basically. And we say, there's got to be something even beyond this. That's the ultimate expansion of consciousness. And so this is what we're doing. And so through the year, we're moving through these stages of life, death, and then we finally get to Dhul Hijjah. And this is really beautiful because it's the last month. But even within the last month, so we see the new moon, and when we have the new moon, it's like a new birth into the last 12th, yeah? What do we do in Muslim countries? That's when you bring an animal into your home. Yeah, in Morocco, they buy the sheep generally on the first of Dhul Hijjah. They bring it into its house. It's like a new life in their home. They feed it. They look at it. They dress it up in Pakistan. Put all like garlands on it and all sorts of stuff. Make it look pretty. Yeah. And then what happens? We experience. What else do we do? There's so many themes of this. I've got to be careful with my time. But you buy the ram. Then, if you're going to slaughter your animal, what's it recommended to refrain from if you're going to slaughter your animal? Anyone know?
Cutting your nails.
Cutting your nails and cutting your hair. Because now you're connecting to the people of the Hajj. Even though, and this is a lot of people struggle that don't have any connection to the Hajj, they struggle, they say, why is it, I can understand why Eid Saghir, the minor Eid after Ramadan, yeah, we've all done something together. But they think, what's Eid Kabir then? If you've never been on Hajj, you can't really connect it. But this is why there's huge significance in this Hajj. Because we send our delegates out to stand before Allah for forgiveness on our behalf. We're sending them out, Allah chooses and selects people. Then we wish to have a connection with them. And so what do? Some people, we bring an animal, just like they're going to slaughter an animal. We don't cut our hair and nails if we're going to do that, as a sense of as if we're in ihram. What else do we do in those first 10 days to connect to the Hajj? What other acts do we do? Yeah, that is one. Before that, though, what's it recommended to do in the first 9 days? Fast. So you have a connection. And they speak about this. Dr. Daniel Siegel, who's a neurologist, he talks about the different senses. We've got the 5 senses, haven't we? Touch, smell, taste. Then he takes you through this basically guided meditation where you go through your senses, you connect to each sense. Then you go into the 6th sense. The 6th sense is your sensations internally of heat, weight, flow of energy internally. Then he goes to the 7th sense. The 7th sense is interconnectedness with other beings and how we're really connected in reality. And if we want to feel whole human beings, we've got to feel connected. And the Hujjaj are doing something incredibly significant, the pilgrims, and we want to be interconnected with them. So even though we're far from them, we're still connected, and so we connect through acts. Okay? And the last one, brilliant, someone mentioned it, when we know that we can sense that they're going out to Arafat, what do we do? Takbirs. Why? Because now they're going to stand on the day and ask for forgiveness. And what are they doing? Forgiveness from what? Okay? I ain't done nothing. I remember when I became a Muslim, I says, "Why am I asking forgiveness? I ain't done nothing wrong." Yeah, I used to say that. But what is forgiveness symbolically? Forgiveness is that you're recognizing that the past does not define you, and the past is not a burden on your back, and Allah can eradicate it like that. And so when we have a death, a separation, initiation, return, death to the old, and it's not going to hold me back, and I'm going to come into, so I'm going to let go of that identity, all that limited view of myself, so that I can fully embrace this new life. Okay, and the perfect example of this, if you want to talk about death, is marriage. Yeah, because marriage is I believe it's one of the ultimate initiation rites that we have left in Western society. It's separation from who you thought you were, yeah, to initiation to another, and death to the old life. I still want to hang out with my mates, and I still, he doesn't want to change whatsoever. I'm sorry, you're going to die, my lad, and it's going to feel like death as well. I still want to be. Yeah, it's the little boy holding on, and now he's got to be a big boy and come into the world and deal with it. And so, if we've got to recognise that every phase, no matter every phase we move through in our life, is a death, and we've got to let go. Well, that's not me. You can't tell me what to do. Well, if you don't want someone to tell you what to do, you better not have got married, because now you're limited in what you can do because you're married now. So if we have kids, you're even more limited, aren't you? Okay, you've got to, especially in this day and age. Before we could send them to mum and dad, and we could now they're busy, So now even the Asians feel this is that I've got to take responsibility now. It's not like the old days. And so there's a death to an old life, a perception of what life is, a separation from that life, initiation into a new life. And then you look at things completely differently when you come back. This is constantly going on in our life, all the time. And if we can recognise that, then we'd be a lot happier if we just acknowledge it and accept it. And so, but what do? The animal is we sacrifice the animal on the 9th. Why 9? 9 is a symbol of the end, because there's no number after 9. What's the number after 9? It's no 10. There's no 10. In reality, if you took it at units, what is it after 9? Well, 0. 0 is the divine. And so it's like, 9's the last day. This is where you get it out with Allah, and you're burning and they'll be burning today. Because they're standing in the plains of Arafah from Dhuhr to Maghrib, with the sun coming down on them. And I tell you, they feel it. I did it when it was December. Alhamdulillah. It's hard this year. They're standing there. The way you identify who you are, you're burning up. And then there's ultimate forgiveness. Allah sends this boom down of forgiveness that has a ripple effect, that basically them being there at that time in that place, and where the Prophet ﷺ says something amazing. He says time has come back on itself, like the day Allah created it, as if everything's come in tune. He's in the center of the world. You can imagine the world like a clock, like the map. It's a circle, and the Kaaba and the Mecca bang in the middle. And the Prophet ﷺ standing at that point, and he says, it's all come back in time. We've come back to the fitrah. When you go on Hajj, it's as if you come back the way you were. What? You're born. You come back to a natural state. And the Prophet ﷺ being there at that time brought it all back, because before the Arabs had played around with the whole system, the calendar, and people didn't even know when the month of Hajj was, because they were doing 13 months, years, and playing around with it. So it all got really confused. So the Prophet ﷺ brings everything to harmony. That's the day where forgiveness comes down upon them, and we benefit. We here right now are benefiting from them being there, standing there. And now what do? They've separated from Mecca to Arafat, initiated when they're in Arafat, they're not in the Haram. It's not the sacred plane. They're outside of Allah's presence, and then they go back in now. Okay. And on that day of the 10th, what do we do to celebrate that end, the 9 ending? And now we're into the 0. We slaughter the animal as if we slaughter ourselves, as if say goodbye to the past, and then we come into a new. And that's why Ibrahim, really, when he's slaughtering his son, he's slaughtering himself, really, because the son is a manifestation of your inner self, because we really that inner self is like a child within us. Okay. And so it's as if basically he stands up to the test, and when you're willing to give over yourself to Allah, He brings something, He let you live still and bring something to replace it. So all this stuff's really symbolic. It's amazing if you think about it. And we don't ponder upon these things. And this is what we're doing in it. And so what do? Then the people head back from Hajj. And look at this, even the phases of the moon. When does it become a full moon? On the 13th. 13th, 14th, 15th. That's when the Hajj is finished. You're going back with clarity. And then you go back into your homes as the waning of the moon. And then it disappears, and then another start, and people come back. You're heading back, and then you get home in Muharram, it's a new start. And what's the new start? They say, was my Hajj accepted, and so forth like this. I say, if you want to know if your Hajj is accepted, you look at where's the shifts, your perception of reality now. And that could be very subtle. If Allah gives you an opportunity, it's just new ways of looking at the world that you've given. So when you come back from the Hajj, have you said goodbye to the way you looked at life before? And that can be very subtle. That can be just basically you don't look at the dunya and you're not so attached to it, yeah. Or you didn't used to pray and suddenly I'm starting to be able to get my prayers in time. It can be anything very, very subtle. But the fact is that you're going into a new year now, a new life. So these are the themes that are really important for us to contemplate on in the Hajj. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant, نستغفرك ونتوب إليك آمنا ثم ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا كنا من الخاسرين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين الحمد لله. Thank you very much, guys, for coming today. Allah accept all your worship and have a Eid Mubarak Sa'id to all of you. I wish you all the best.